We are back on English, particularly looking at the writing aspect. And today we're going to look at end of sentence punctuation. So, as I did with the other, some of the other English presentations, just a bit of a reminder of what you can expect from the exam. So, from the writing part, it will be an online assessment. So, it'll be sat in a suitable location, agreed between you and your tutor, ideally in an office or in a library or anywhere that's quiet, anywhere in a room. We can shut the door and there's just you and your tutor, and it's a suitably quiet environment. So it'll be done on your tutor's laptop. There'll be software on that laptop where they'll open it up, they'll put in a code, and your exam will pop up and you'll have no other access to anything else on the actual laptop itself. It'll be an online. So although it says online, where possible, we will download the exam. So when you actually sit it, it will be offline. However, once it is then completed and the time runs out, it then disappears and you won't see it. So it then goes back to an online assessment, and it then gets marked by the awarding body, who in this case are NCFE. So they will externally mark it. So we don't see it, we don't mark it, I don't see it. And your tutor won't see it either. All they'll have is the feedback that you will give them afterwards. And if you wanted to give me a call, send me a message afterwards, because it is going to take a week, possibly 2 weeks for your results to come back. If there are anything that you think, oh, I really don't think I passed it, but in a week, 2 weeks, you might forget what it was that you struggled on. So more than happy for you to give me a call, give me an email and just say, look, I don't think I did very well. This is what I did or didn't do, or can you clarify this? Obviously, I'll know more than your tutor will, so get in contact. Your exam will be 60 minutes for the writing part. Don't have to take 60 minutes, but obviously it's useful time. You do finish early just to make the most of it and just to keep going over your work, checking it. You may want to add stuff in. You may pick up on your own mistakes. So as mentioned before, there's 2 tasks. You'll get a formal and an informal task to write. You'll have something to respond to. So they will give you a scenario, a situation. But it's up to you what the content is. You can be happy as positive about that reply or whatever it is you need to do, or you can be as negative as you want, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Me personally, whenever I've looked at any of the examples, whether I agree with it or not, it's so much easier to be negative and think about negative things to say, because you can just go on and say, what about this for the affecting these sort of people and this affecting this sort of people. Whereas if you're being positive, it might just be oh yeah, that's a great idea, but you don't really know why. So you need plenty of examples. So it doesn't necessarily matter on the content, it's how you write it and how you structure it and lay it out. So you've got your 2 tasks, and you've got 20 marks for each task. As we've already seen in some of the other sessions, it could be a letter, it could be an article, a report, or an email. So you will get 2 of those, and they're particularly looking at your structure and your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. And in this particular case, with this session today, your punctuation is actually worth 6 marks in total. So this is a breakdown of what it is that examiners are looking at. So on both of the 2 tasks, this is what they'll be looking at. So they'll be looking at your spelling, your punctuation, your grammar, making sure the text is appropriately formatted. So in terms of if it's a letter, you've got your address at the top right, you've got who you're sending it to on the left, your date is on there, you addressed it appropriately, you've ended it appropriately, you're then using appropriate paragraphs. So obviously start a new paragraph when you're talking about something new. It's obviously effective in terms of what you're saying and the length. So you need to write enough for them to allow to give you that 20 marks. Appropriate evidence. So it doesn't, obviously, it's not going to expect you to put pictures or anything in there, because you can't possibly do that. However, you would just make it up. So yeah, if you're saying it's a great idea, well, why is it a great idea? Give some examples. It's a great idea because it's going to be a health benefit, or it get more kids off the street. It depends obviously on what the situation is. Make sure obviously the content, what you're talking about, is relevant and sufficient. So obviously they will give you something to reply to. Make sure you follow that scheme and you reply to it, and don't go off and start talking about things that aren't in what they've asked you to do. And obviously your ideas need to be presented logically. So you'd present it in. So if you're writing a letter, I'm writing this letter because, tell them why, and then go into your different paragraphs. This is why I think this is a great idea. This is why I think it's a bad idea. And then a different paragraph for each idea that you feel would have a negative or positive effect on whatever it is you're replying to. Okay, so in this particular case, 3 marks. So 3 marks on task 1, 3 marks on task 2. Hence why punctuation is quite a big thing. So that's what we're going to look at today. So just have a bit of a recap as well on some exam tips. Okay, so just for me to be able to give you guys a bit of a heads up on how to pick up marks or not lose them as such, and how to kind of get through the exam. So make sure you split your time evenly. So you've already been told there's 2 tasks. You've got 60 minutes. So using your math skills, 30 minutes a task. If you're still on task 1, at gone 30 minutes, you're not going to leave yourself enough time for that task 2. You might do. You might get lucky and it might be easier for you to write about it. But you're going to get more marks if you stop what you're doing on task 1, move on to task 2. Hopefully you'll get through that one a bit quicker, and then you can come back to task 1 if you want to add more to it. So although I'm saying allocate yourself half an hour each task, you need to then be clever with, you don't want to allocate yourself 30 minutes to write and then not have any time to check it. Okay, so you need to allow at least 5 minutes per task to actually then go back, read through it, and make changes where you need to. So you might read through it and be like, I don't think that's how you spell that word. Can you describe it a different way? Can you use a different word if you don't know how to spell it? Don't just leave it in there. Change it. Obviously, you're then going to be, when you're reading through it, does it make sense? Could you add anything more in there? Is the spelling correct? Is your punctuation correct? So yeah, at least 5 minutes to have a read through and check it. So ideally, you probably want about 5 minutes planning. So you read task 1, right? Okay, what does it want me to do? Let's sit and plan. Maybe write some notes down on your scrap paper. What am I going to write about? Am I going to go positive? Am I going to go negative? Have a quick brainstorm. What sort of ideas should I talk about? It will give you a couple of bullet points just to say comment on this or comment on that. Again, it's up to you where you take that. So yeah, maybe 5 minutes planning, 20 minutes writing, and then another 5 minutes to read through and check. Move on to your second task. Okay, don't waste time changing text sizes and fonts. Leave this to the end because it's very, very few marks. Because as long as you've got, if it's a letter, the layout's on the right side, all you need to do is obviously move where the writing is. You will have the basic tools as you will on like a Word document, so you'll be able to either put the writing down the left hand side or move it to the right hand side. You don't have to keep pressing the space bar or tabbing across. You should have those options on there. Yeah, so if you're doing an article and you want to put a title in it, but you want to make it a bit bold or bigger than the rest, again, don't waste time faffing around with that. Wait until the end and go back and do that, because the content and what you put in there will be, as long as there is a title and you've then got a space, they'll show that you've at least put that in there. So that's the main aspect. Then obviously when you're going back through it, then use that time to do things like that, make it look a bit more presentable. So when you're in the exam, like I said, there is going to be just you and your tutor. There potentially maybe someone else sitting the exam, but very unlikely. So if it's just you and your tutor, you need to, and it helps you, read out loud. They're not going to care if you do that or not. They just obviously can't help you. But if you need to read out loud, do it. Don't use exclamation marks in your formal task. We're going to go on to that a bit more in a bit as to why not. Okay, so on some of the other presentations, or one of the other presentations, I've shown you a video from the NCFE, who are the awarding body, and they gave us guidance on common errors come up in your English exam and that previous learners have made mistakes on. This one is how to overcome those common errors. It does give a recap on what the errors are first, and then how to overcome them. So this is going to help you for your exam.
Identifying these errors with your learners, you can help them to eradicate and remove them from their final exam. Those crucial marks that can make the difference between achieving and not achieving. As well as these video modules, you can also read the Chief Examiner reports, which are released in January and August. These reports are available on the NCFE website. For the writing assessment, you will be given a variety of writing tasks to complete in order to achieve. Learners often lose easy marks due to formatting errors, so we're going to go through what examiners are looking for. For the writing task, there are 40 marks up for grabs over the 2 tasks, so it's important not to lose too many silly marks. For the formal letter template, to gain full structure marks, learners should include the following. There should be 2 addresses, a date, a complimentary salutation, a formal close. If they are given the name of the person to write to, it should be accurately spelled, and the close should be yours sincerely. If they don't know the name, then a formal letter is addressed to Dear Sir or Madam and signed off with yours faithfully. We expect all answers to be appropriately paragraphed with an introduction, conclusion where appropriate. Learners should not write their own name above their address. They should take care that the salutation and close match and are appropriate to the task. All written documents should be paragraphed with an introduction and conclusion where appropriate. Articles and reports should have titles and subtitles, which is something Level 1 learners struggle to structure and format. So when creating an article or report, you should follow this pattern. Work with your learners on articles, set them tasks to create an article around something work related, and create templates on how articles should be laid out so that they are familiar with the expectations ahead of the final assessment. For emails, a lot of learners don't complete the addressee or subject header and lose easy marks. For informal emails, the tone of the email should be more relaxed. For example, we would not expect them to open with Dear Mrs. Smith. However, for a more formal email, it is important to be appropriate. We would not expect them to open with Hi Mate, for example. For both types of emails, there should be a greeting and a close. We are now going to show you how marks are broken down for each level in English writing assessment. It is crucial you work with your learners so they identify how to achieve maximum marks in each section. So for level 1, you are required to write clearly and coherently, including an appropriate level of detail. Present information in a logical sequence. Use language, format and structure suitably for purpose and for audience. Use correct grammar, including correct and consistent use of tense. Ensure written work includes generally accurate spelling and that meaning is clear. Ensure written work includes generally accurate punctuation and that meaning is clear. For level 2, you need to present information, ideas concisely, logically and persuasively. Present information in complex subject clearly and concisely. Use an appropriate writing style fit for purpose. Use a range of sentence structures, including complex sentences and paragraphs, to organise written communication effectively. Punctuate written text using commas, apostrophes and inverted commas accurately. Ensure written work is fit for purpose and audience with accurate spelling and grammar that support clear meaning. There is a need to ensure that learners understand how many marks are allocated to the structure and layout of their work. Just writing lots of information with no structure is not going to allow them to achieve. They need to showcase the full set of skills included in the coverage and range. Here's an example of how to write an article or a guide. When writing formal letters, it should look something like this. Remember, if you have put learners through online assessment, allow them to access the system before they sit their assessment. We have sample papers online and also have video tutorials which talk the learners through the system. For reading assessment, learners need to be able to identify key features and purpose of text. There are 30 marks to be gained over papers, with 2 source documents at level 1 to be read and 3 source documents at level 2. We are going to go through a few common errors now and how to overcome these. The last section of level 2 reading paper usually asks learners to answer a question by comparing and contrasting all the documents they have read. This section is worth 3 or 4 marks. For borderline learners in particular, this is often the difference between a pass or a fail. Some learners tend to simply write about one of the documents or the last document they have read and explain its contents, without really addressing the question at all. This approach is unlikely to score any marks at all. For top marks in these sorts of questions, examiners are looking for a well-considered and justifiable answer, supported with 2 or more reasons, explanations that are detailed and from all the source documents, answers that compare both language and content. Presentation features often cause problems for learners in reading assessments. For example, the question may ask identify 2 features of layout used in the document. The type of responses examiners are looking for would be use of colour and change of font size for headings and or subheadings, use of photographs or illustrations. The document is separated into a section with subheadings. Often learners think that paragraphs are presentation features. This is not the case. It is also important to stress that they have to pick the features out of the document given to them. It is not asking for what they would normally do in a document. There could be up to 6 marks available throughout a paper for this type of question. Learners also struggle to identify the main point of a piece of text. They need to identify the purpose of the text. The examiner is not looking for an overview or a comment on the text that focuses on content. Answers should be limited to the purpose. For example, a news article purpose could be to inform on X, but also persuade on Y. A self-help book would be to advise on Z. A letter offering the latest mobile phone would be to persuade. A music review would be to analyse, inform and advise. A fictional book would be to entertain, while a historical book may be to entertain and inform. Key words to look for are to inform, to persuade, to argue, to describe and to advise. The answer should be more than 2 words. It should explain. The learner will also need to recognise who the document has been written for. Learners need to know the difference between fact and opinion. Learners need to work with practice materials that require them to read comprehensive questions with care. This requires a detailed response to the source document and enables them to interpret text, especially understanding inference or using context. Learners would benefit from practicing questions based on the use of language, use of text features, and understand the style of text. You can practice with them by using books that identify facts, for example, Guinness Books of Record, or using articles from newspapers where a writer is expressing an opinion. They will be expected to not only give an answer, but to support that answer. An easy way to do this is to use an example from the text in the source document. The learner needs to show the method and the quotation mark to get full marks. It may sound obvious, but learners need to read the question carefully. So many learners misread questions and lose marks because they have misunderstood what it is asking from them. Encourage them to use a dictionary if they do not understand what a word means, or to look up keywords. They also need to look at how many marks are available for a question. If there is 1 mark, the examiner is looking for a quick single answer. If there are 2 marks, the examiner is either looking for 2 answers or some supporting evidence to the original answer. Encourage the learner to pick up on what document the question is referring to. If the question says document 1, then use that document. or if it relates to two documents, then use both. You would be surprised at how many learners make mistakes on this.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a full insight into what to expect from your exam, based on obviously what I've gone over for the video, in terms of that was very heavily focused on your writing. The video is quite heavily focused on your reading aspect, but generally, unless you state you don't want to, we'll probably do both exams on one day. So do the 60-minute reading or writing, whatever you prefer, have a break, and then do the second one after that. So get it over and done with. So it's really important that you guys know what to expect. Okay, so obviously today's session is on punctuation. So punctuation obviously is really important when it comes to not only reading, because it's going to give you an understanding of what it is that piece of writing is about. For example, in previous sessions, we looked at things like writing examples, looking into text, and the reason why they were written. So things like text with rhetorical questions in them, they're getting you to stop and think about things. Are they trying to persuade you to do something? Are they trying to persuade you to buy something? So it's really important not only to use in your own writing skills, but it will help you when you're reading as well. So main reasons why it's important. So if it's poorly punctuated, formal email or letter, it looks unprofessional, and obviously may be difficult to understand. And the most important thing for you guys to remember is these are not marked electronically. They will go to a physical person. So an examiner will be marking these. So they'll be reading through them. So you want to get them on board. You want to present it well. Punctuation takes the place of the body language, so volume and tone that would have been used if it had been spoken, the words instead. So obviously when you're reading through it, if you are reading your sentence and you're out of breath and you haven't paused, good indication that you've missed out some punctuation in there. So there are 3 different symbols, each with a slightly different purpose. Okay, so one is a full stop. So these are obviously placed at the end of your statements or commands. For example, at the end of this sentence, there's a full stop, or do not run down the corridor, full stop. Okay. Can anyone think of what another one might be? So apart from full stop, what else are you going to end? Could you end your sentence in? If you can access the chat box, you could put in the symbol question mark. Yes, spot on. Well done. So yeah, a question mark is the next obvious one. So these obviously, again, used at the end, but only if there's a question in there. So, for example, are you sure this is a question mark? And who put you in charge? They're questions, so they end in question marks. Excellent. So the last one is an exclamation mark. So used less often, however, they are going to be used at some point. So these are used to show something in direct speech. So when it's said loudly or when something is exclaimed. So, oh no, or you cannot be serious. So it's basically when there's a bit of emotion in there. If you're shouting at someone, if you're angry with someone, if you're really excited about something. So when we come on to exclamation marks in a bit, you'll see why it's not appropriate that you use it in your formal writing. Okay, so full stops. So we're going to look at an example of a full stop. So decide where the incorrect full stops in the sentence below are and highlight where capital letters are needed. Okay, so first one. I'm not going to read this out because how I read it may interpret what you think is wrong with it. Okay, so you have a read through it and then tell me how many How many errors are there? So one or more. So is there an incorrect full stop in there? Or does it read okay? Are you happy where the full stops are? What do we think? Okay, so hopefully you've spotted that there is one incorrect full stop in there. Okay, obviously the full stop at the end is correct. You definitely would want that in there. However, as highlighted, the one in the middle is not needed. Hence why then there's no capital letters, because it's not needed. So you wouldn't need to put a capital for P. Excellent. So the second example. How many do we think is in there? So are there any errors in there? If so, so obviously we're only looking at full stops. At the moment there's 3 in there. Should there be 3 in there? How many do you think there should be in there? Okay, so hopefully you've managed to identify that. So you need to take out the, yeah, definitely need to take out the first full stop. Yeah, well done. So yeah, in this case, there's actually 2 in there that don't need to be in there. So you wouldn't need that, certainly wouldn't need that first one in there. And you definitely don't need the second one in there. And obviously you've then got a comma in the last part of the sentence. And yes, you would need the end one in there. Okay, so there's 2 errors in that one. What about C? Okay, how many? So at the moment, there's 2 full stops. Are both full stops needed? Okay, so hopefully again, you've recognised that actually that first full stop that appears mid-sentence does not need to be there. Okay, so again, that would come completely out and there wouldn't be any need for any capital letters. How about the last? Okay, so example D, nice and short one. There's 2 full stops in there at the moment. Does there need to be a full stop in there? And obviously, the second part of the question is, do there need to be any capital letters in there? So no, there definitely needs to be just 1. Well done. So just 1 full stop in at the end. What about capital letters? Should there be any capital letters in there? Even though we're taking that full stop out? So hopefully you've recognised that actually the supervisor is a name. So yes, we would take that full stop out, but there also needs to be a capital J and N in there because it's a name of someone. So okay, good. So that's full stops. So now we're going to have a practice and see if we can spot where these full stops should and shouldn't be. So sorry, we're going to go to not full stops, question marks. So question marks are used obviously at the ends of direct questions, including what we mentioned earlier, the rhetorical questions. So remember, rhetorical questions are those which an answer is not required. So it's still a question, but because you're reading it, you're not going to stop and answer it out loud, but it will stop and get you thinking, referring back to when we did purpose of text, why it's been written. If you're stopping and thinking about it, is it persuading you? Okay, so what I want you to do is read the sentences below and decide which ones have used question marks correctly by stating yes or no. So in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and just say yes or no. Okay, so example A, is this a question? Yes or no? What do we think? Yes. Well done. Yeah, it is a question. So example B, I'm not sure about anything anymore. Is this a question? I'm not sure about anything anymore. What do we think? Yes or no? Okay, we've got one answer, yes. Actually a no, because it's not a question. So it's a statement. I'm not sure about anything anymore. You're not asking that to anyone. It's just you making a statement. Okay, question C. So wasn't he listening? I don't want to go to work. Is that a question? Yes or no? Wasn't he listening? I don't want to go to work. Am I asking a question in there? When I read it to you, do you think I'm asking you a question? No. Excellent. Well done. So yeah, there's no question in there. So D, is it home time yet? Okay. Slight trick there. If you go back to the question, and as they said in the video earlier, make sure you read the question properly, and it's why I've highlighted question where it has, as they use question marks correctly, state yes or no. So whilst you're correct, yes, it is a question. Is there a question mark in there? No, there's not. I haven't used a question mark. So actually, they've asked a question, not used the correct punctuation. So it's just, you've just overlooked it. So yes, it is a question, but it's good because it means you understand what question is. But in this case, no, they haven't used it correctly because they haven't put the question mark in there. So that was a bit of a mean one, but obviously it just proves that you just need to, because even when I was putting this presentation together, I didn't notice it either. So so it's really important reason why you need to obviously check and read through. So E is Jake wasn't happy, was he? Is this a question? Jake wasn't happy, was he? So am I asking a question in there? So yes, I am. F. Craig asked me earlier for a go on my bike. I said no. Does the part Craig asked me earlier for a go on my bike, does that need a question mark? Is that a question? No, it's not a question. Yes, Craig asked a question if he could have a go on my bike, but in this statement, I'm saying what Craig asked me earlier. So in this particular case, does not need a question mark. Okay. So G is, do you mind if I have a biscuit? That question. Do you mind if I have a biscuit? Am I asking you a question right now? Yes. Yeah, definitely asking you a question there. And H, tea or coffee? Am I asking a question? Yes. Yeah, spot on. Well done. So yeah, definitely asking a question. Shame there's no one here to answer it and ask me, get me a tea or coffee, but good example. So well done. So yeah, there was one kind of catchy one in there, but again, it's just an example of how you can misread questions, especially with all of these. You've kind of got halfway through, you think you're kind of following a format, and actually it throws something in there where there is a question. Obviously there's no question mark used, so easy mistake to make. So just always have on your mind what's the question, what am I actually doing. Okay, so looking at exclamation marks. So an exclamation mark are used when something is shouted in direct speech or to show extreme emotion. So for example, surprise, anger, fear, etc. So typically exclamation marks are only used in informal writing. So this is what I said earlier. If you're writing a formal letter or a formal email, you shouldn't be shouting at that person. You shouldn't be surprised or angry. Potentially, I mean, obviously it does depend on the topic. If you're writing a formal letter, I think it depends on who you're writing it to. So there may be some anger in there. But generally, exclamation marks are not, they're not used in formal writing. Okay, so just be careful of how you're wording it, because obviously, if you're putting a very strongly worded email or letter together to someone, obviously to even get their attention, it needs to be properly punctuated for them to even read it. Okay, so read the sentences below and decide which ones should be punctuated with an exclamation mark by stating yes or no. Exactly the same as what we've just done. A is watch out. Should this have an exclamation mark? Yes or no? Watch out. Am I showing any emotion there? Should this have an exclamation mark? Okay. Yes, it should. Okay, so I am a bit angry. So obviously it's hard sometimes to do unless you know the context of it, of what it is that you're obviously reading. But yeah, generally if I'm going to say watch out, it's probably because I'm walking on the path and some bike has just come steaming past me on the path. So I might shout, watch out. Okay, so B is, well, that was boring. Does that need an exclamation mark? Well, that was boring. Am I shouting or am I using extreme emotion? No, well done. So I have to go to the bank later. Am I shouting or using extreme emotion? The C? No, I'm not. D? I'm not so sure. Again, am I using extreme emotion? Am I shouting at anyone? Am I surprised? Am I angry? I'm not so sure. No. No, doesn't need one. So E, are you coming or not? Am I using extreme emotion? Am I surprised? Am I angry? Are you coming or not? No, good. Yeah, I'm not using. I potentially, again, it depends on what the context is, but in that particular one, are you coming or not is okay. So F, that's amazing. Does that need an exclamation mark? Yes, spot on. Yeah, definitely. If something's amazing, then hopefully you're going to be showing a lot of emotion about it. So you're going to be really, you might be surprised that it's amazing. You might be really ecstatically happy that it's amazing. So yeah, definitely. So G, I'm a ghost. Boo. Does that need an exclamation mark? Again, one of those ones which is hard to put into context unless you know the subject. But if you don't know the subject, there's a ghost. Someone is shouting boo. Yeah, if you definitely does. you in that situation and you thought you saw a ghost and it said boo, you would definitely be needing an exclamation mark. Excellent. So last one is the library is full. Does that need an exclamation mark? Am I showing emotion? Am I angry or surprised? The library is full. No. Excellent. Yeah, spot on. So yeah, no emotion in there. At the moment, obviously the library is not going to be full, but in general, they are, yeah, there's no emotion in it. Excellent. So well done. So more than happy with that. So we've gone through what the three endings of your sentences are going to be. So let's see what you've learned. So back to the normal Kahoot quiz. So I know that you guys, both you guys have obviously got this downloaded. So we will go straight to the pin. And I have to apologise because I had a couple of computer errors just before I went online. So normally I'm logged in. Unfortunately, my mouse stopped working, so I had to quickly shut down and start up again. So I'm just going to log in and get that loaded up for us. So if you guys can just make sure you've got your Kahoot ready. The pin will be up in 2 seconds. So I'm guessing that Chantal can't access the chat box, but hopefully she can still access Kahoot. We'll find out in a minute. Okay, so today's game pin is 27838. Okay, Heather's in. Hopefully Chantal will be able to get in. Excellent. Well done, Chantal. Okay, so obviously there's only you two today, so you both know how to play it. You both know it's timed. So we'll go straight in for the first question. Okay, how many marks in your exam is punctuation worth in total? Excellent, well done. Yeah, so it was, remember, 2 tasks, 3 each task, so yeah, 6 in total. Well done. Who was quickest? Chantal, well done. How long should you allocate yourself for task 1 in the exam? Yeah, excellent. So I said obviously there's various ways that you could break it down. You might want to do 5 minutes for planning, 5 minutes to read through. But yeah, in total, that task, entirely up to you how you might be someone that actually writes a sentence and then reads back through it and checks it there and then. Depends on how you work. So yeah, as long as you stick to the 30 minutes for the first task, 30 for the second, you should be all good. Who was quickest? Well done, Heather. When should you avoid using exclamation marks? Excellent. 2 right answers. Who was quickest? Well done, Heather. When using a full stop mid-sentence, what must follow? Excellent. Both quick there. Who was the quickest? Well, got you backwards and forwards. Heather's back on top. A question mark is always used where there is a rhetorical question. Someone's got the wrong answer. It's going to decide your winner. Well done, Heather. So, excellent. Well done. So, yeah, I'm happy with today's session and what we've gone through.